Hello, my dears. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all my reviews from April all the way to June for the TV shows that I devoured during that time period. So let's kick it off with May. I didn't watch anything in April, so it's only kind of 2 months worth. So the first thing I watched was the entirety of season 1 for Legion, and this one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. As usual, I'm not going to really be giving you the synopsis as such, so it's just straight up my raw reviews. So I'm very conflicted with this one. I was confused for a lot of it. It's interesting, but a lot of it didn't feel satisfying. I couldn't exactly place the era, and I think that was one of the main things that kind of made me feel a bit iffy with the whole thing, because I didn't really know where I was supposed to be, as opposed to when I was supposed to be. It was a bit of everything, and then the powers on top of that were just really overkill. It was a little bit too much. I was watching MoonKnight around the same time as this, and there was an episode that felt exactly the same. I don't know. I'm still undecided on this one, but it is kind of an interesting, I guess, like meta X-Men universe kind of what if, I suppose. But it kind of went over my head for the most part of it. Next up, speaking of MoonKnight, I did indeed watch the full season of that for the first season 1, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. So this was another one I did struggle to get into originally. I was not sold on the first 2 episodes. I think I felt like I was betraying Rick Riordan, because to me he is like the myth master, and anything Egyptian, Greek, Norse that he's already like recreated, I feel like I can't, I don't know, fully appreciate the new versions from other studios, creators, that sort of thing. I don't know, it's just a weird thing I have. Anyway, I love that the Egyptian artifacts sometimes have this higher tech aspect to it. It really played into this old versus modern, fusion that I felt we were having throughout the series. It feeds into that conspiracy that ancient Egypt was fueled by the knowledge of otherworldly beings, and that's why they were so advanced. I love a good conspiracy, and that was one that I really enjoyed diving into, and to kind of get that little bit of aspect into this season, into this show in general. I didn't really know anything that was going on in this series when I initially started, so I was thrown off by all the Egyptology, and then began nitpicking at bits that didn't seem to make sense with the actual lore and mythos. For example, why not include Isis, Horus, Osiris and Set, the main powerful ones? Anyway, after the 3 episodes, I did really get into it. I loved Steven and his geeky ways, and the story progressed in a direction that I really enjoyed, and I think it could tie into other areas of Marvel really well. So by the end of it, I was actually really excited for a season 2. Back to Legion again, I watched season 2, and unfortunately this one kind of went downhill for me. I gave it a 2 star, so it knocked off 1 more star from the original viewing. I had no idea what was going on. I think you have to have a very particular mindset for this sort of thing. It just felt over complex for me, and I couldn't really follow the threads of the direction of anything that was happening, and I'm not the super most familiar with the X-Men universe and the extensive lore and stuff, so maybe it's just generally not one for me. So going into June, I hit off with some comedy, and that was Chewing Gum. I watched season 1, and this was a 5 star for me. I've been meaning to watch Michaela Cole's stuff for ages, so when Netflix was removing Chewing Gum shortly, it gave me the push I needed to actually check it out. After episode 1, I stopped, and I thought this is a show that I had to watch with my other half, so we did that, and we binged it in days, less than days really. It was so funny, so relatable and weird, and I absolutely loved it. So following on the heels from that, I checked out season 2, also gave that one a 5 stars. It was once again absolutely fabulous, so many layers, and the humour was just spot on, and it was just so sad that there's no more after that. But she does have another season called I May Destroy You. I don't know if that's supposed to be comedy, dark humour, anything like that, but I am interested in picking that one up. After that, I got back to The Magicians. Oh my god, it's been ages since I dived back into this world, and that is with season 5, which I gave a 4 star overall. I'm really sad that this got cancelled, because it became something familiar for me over the last few years, and it felt curious and nostalgic and familiar but unique all at once. It was one of those weird sensations where you're not the only one to have experienced it, but it feels entirely your own and special. Anyway, sap over. Time for a quick review. why does the library always have a wonky angle? Like, that's always something that's thrown me off. I'm sure there's something, like, I don't know, cinematic about it, something meaning behind the way they shot it, but I did not understand that. But yeah, anyway, I came back to this ages later. I think I was halfway through episode 7 or 8 when I just suddenly stopped. So it was a bit tricky to remember exactly what had happened. But anyway, I liked how they actually acknowledged the random bursts of singing. That's another thing that sometimes I can't kind of displace my confusion over when an episode, like with American Horror Story, with this, like a random burst of singing, and then just ignore it and act like it was natural and nothing happened. I love that they actually acknowledged it. Like, it felt, I don't know, it was a little bit of fourth wall breaking, and I enjoyed it. It's done quite well. The whole thing, I'm sure, was enjoyable, but as I say, I can't really remember the first half entirely. I do feel like the strongest seasons were probably the first 2, though. But regardless, it was a super unique, and as I said earlier, it felt like coming home to an effect. And so this show will always have a special place in my heart, for sure. I'm quite gutted that it's over now. After that, I watched, like everyone else, I feel like, in the UK, Heartstopper, and this is season 1. I think they've confirmed 3 seasons entirely so far, so very excited to have another 2 seasons after this one. But this I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. Anyway, I was super excited for this when it dropped, and I was so nervous that I ended up putting it off for the longest time. But I'm glad I didn't do it for too long, because this was great. I love the comics, and I felt like the show really held this essence of the books. Alice Osman was really involved in the direction of it all, and you can really tell, which is awesome. It felt like hers, which obviously it is. I loved her cameo and her illustrations dotted throughout, and I really enjoyed, like, the little Easter eggs of characters reading her books, or her books in the background. Like, it really, it made me giggle. I loved it. I was grinning throughout the whole thing. It was super wholesome. I squealed so much. It was so heartwarming. The soundtrack that was picked for this was absolutely perfect. It had the best cringe. It felt genuine and puppy love and adorable, and it just felt real. You can see hints of serious topics to come, for example, already with the homophobia, but also with Charlie's mental health. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the TV show develops this into future seasons. The only thing I wasn't super sound with was Tori, Charlie's sister. I don't know if it's just me, but she looked pained all the time. Like, it kind of worked for her character, but at the same time, like, seeing that on the screen, it was a bit too intense for me. Oh, and Nick's mum, who I just felt she didn't feel as warm and approachable as she did in the books. Let me know if you felt the same. It is Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, which I gave her 4 stars, and oh my god, this was heartbreaking. A documentary into the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, run by Warren Jeffs, and it was investigating all the awful crimes that the leaders of that particular branch of the church got up to, and it was so difficult to watch, but very, like, interesting, and, you know, I've learned something new now. Also, throughout June, I finally watched Friends for the first time. I think I got through all of season 1, and I'm partway through season 2. At one point, I just had it on as background noise for the majority of, like, my existence, and I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun, and I understand why it's got so much love for many people, even up to now. So yeah, those are all the reviews for the TV shows that I watched in April, May and June. Let's get on to all the films that I watched during that time too. Okay, so in April I actually watched a couple of things this time round in terms of movies. The first thing was Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which I gave a 3.5. Basically I went on this massive, I don't know, not rampage, but movie fest, watching all the Pirates of the Caribbean. Favour for Johnny Depp, and kind of in solace with him. So yeah, some of these I hadn't watched before, some of them I vaguely remember from my childhood, but yeah, this one I gave a 3.5 stars. Entertaining, super funny, really enjoyed watching it. After that, I went to the cinema and I checked out Morbius. I do have a review for this one already, so I will leave the link in the description for you if you guys are interested. Next up, another Pirates of the Caribbean, and you will see the rest of the films immediately after this one. But this one was Dead Man's Chest, which I gave a 3.5 again. Again, decent entertainment, thoroughly enjoyed this one, it was great fun. After that, I checked out Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which I gave a 4 stars. Excuse the pun, but this had so much heart, and I think it made me connect to the story even more. This one was a favourite for sure. Next up, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. I gave this one a 4 stars as well. This was another favourite of the series, especially for the mermaids and the Fountain of Youth. I remember so much, like, every time I remember in my youth, every time I would go on a deep dive of mermaids, they're like design would come up, and it would just throw me on even deeper because they looked so real, and just the artistry in their mermaid's tails, and oh, I loved it. I wish there was more in there, like even more, and like different designs and stuff that we could see proper in detail, because you just kind of follow this one mermaid that's, you know, tagging along with them. Anyway, last Pirates of the Caribbean film was Salazar's Revenge. I think it's got another name as well. Unfortunately, I gave this one a 2.5 stars. I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more had I not fallen asleep for a while. But also, I know the films kind of went downhill, and a lot of people enjoyed the first movies to begin with. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. After that, I checked out Death on the Nile, which I gave 4 stars. This is an Agatha Christie adaptation. I've only ever seen short TV series adaptations by the BBC, which I've always enjoyed, but never, you know, a feature film. But I didn't have particular presumptions for this, but as soon as I saw the cast, I was very excited for what would unfold. It's a story basically about obsessive love, and we are accompanied by the famous detective Poirot, his dashing moustache, honestly, having a holiday through Egypt on a river steamer. Of course, it turns deadly. I watched it in 2 halves, which can sometimes affect my viewing, but this was beautiful regardless. The plot was twisty-turny. I never guessed a thing. It had such a good, like, atmosphere building in it. And I'm going to have to go back and check out the Orient Express next, because I really enjoyed it. After that, I watched a classic, and that's Scarface. This is the first time I've ever watched it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. As I say, first time seeing this, it was super entertaining. The acting was very dated, but it was so much fun to watch. For May, I went to the cinema and checked out Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and 5 stars. I gave it all the stars. I know a lot of people had some mixed emotions about this, and I can see where a lot of the critiques come in, but I enjoyed it. I loved it. The plot sort of expanded from WandaVision and really had me feeling sympathetic at the heart of it. But what was happening was unacceptable, and it was up to Steven to make it right. The crossovers from other famous Marvel series was seamless, and there was lots of continuation from the What If series, which I really enjoyed seeing. It was immersive, funny, heartbreaking, and phenomenal. I wasn't expecting so many gory horror scenes, but it all worked, and I would highly recommend. One of the main critics that I've seen is how they turned Wanda into a villain, because you basically got closure already, like through WandaVision and other shows and movies and such. So it kind of felt like a disservice to her as a character, opening that back up again and using the pain that she was going through to make her a villain, and such a cruel one as it as well. So I understand that, but I also thought it was well done personally, and I quite enjoyed the movie generally. Next up, I watched 1917, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Oh my god, this was really emotional and super gripping. I wasn't watching it properly for the whole time, but it got me in the end. It was heartbreaking and brutal, and the cinematography was stunning. I definitely avoided going to the cinema to see this one when it released originally, because where it's so immersive, it's like a one-shot kind of filming movie, and where it's so immersive, you're like on the ground with them and you're following up and down and shaky. I knew it would have made me feel sick on the big screen, especially if it is in one of those 4D viewings where the chairs move and stuff like that. So I'm glad I enjoyed it on my own telly in the comfort of my own home, you know, because it wasn't as HD and extra, and it didn't make me feel sick or anything. This movie for May was Last Night in Soho, which, oh my god, 5 stars, amazing movie. This was awesome. It blended so many things that made it incredibly unique and appealing to a varied audience, I feel. The cast were fantastic. The plot got more and more complex, and I was not expecting the outcome at all. What a bloody amazing, genre-defying movie. Cinematically, beautiful. The techniques they used to share Sandy's story through Ellie's visions was just superb. I loved every minute of this movie and would highly recommend it. I wish I saw this one in the cinema, but I'm glad I paid a small amount to rent it on Prime. And the last thing I watched was the only movie that I watched in June, and that was The Troll Hunter, which I gave it a 3 stars. It's just a good lost footage monster movie, to be honest. Really enjoyed my time with it. Wasn't anything exceptional, but it was quite fun. I loved how kind of realistic they tried to make the story of the troll and the hunting and stuff, but you know, the CG could have been better. Anyway, that is all for the reviews that I have to share with you today. Let me know if you've watched any of these TV shows or movies that I've talked about here today, and I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.